So I'm going to show you how I made these Pojagi inspired patchwork curtains. This is not the traditional method of how they should be made. It's a traditional Korean technique. I think it has a really modern look, but it also adds a lot of character and uniqueness. They're supposed to also mimic the effect of like a stained glass window. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to make the fifth panel that I need. So I'm not an expert, but I will say I've worked on these curtains for over 100 hours cumulatively, so I do know a little bit on how to make them. And this is what's worked best for me. So I'm going to go over some of the materials that you need to create these curtains, and I think a first important step is to determine the color palette you want to go for. I've seen these like monochrome where they've been all shades of blues. I'm kind of going for these muted like jewel tones. Traditionally, I believe these are supposed to be made out of scrap linen and silk and cotton. And I had a few scrap materials, but then I did also buy some new. But I did stick with all natural materials, so these are either all linen or all cotton. So you can see my color palette here, a compilation of different whites. I know these probably all look the same on camera, but they're all a little bit different, and you could really tell when the light shines through them. Measure out the yardage that you need and then add a half a yard extra, just because we're cutting and doing patchwork, so there's lots of seams and edges and hems that we have to do, which shrinks down the size of your curtain. Regarding the other materials that you need, I'm doing this with a machine. The traditional ways to do it by hand. I'm not doing that, that would take forever. You also need to pick your thread color, scissors, seam ripper in case of mistakes, which will happen, pins, a cutting wheel I think is technically not necessary, but it will make your life a lot easier, and a self-healing cutting mat. You will also probably want to use an iron at some point. So what I do next is I cut out all my fabric and piece it together. I don't plan in my head beforehand where I want what colors to go where. And I also don't measure anything. I kind of start by cutting out some big pieces of color and cream and start laying them together like puzzle pieces and then fill in the blanks. Okay, so I have a good chunk of fabric cut. I don't really cut this to a specific size or anything. I kind of just follow what's going to happen and I piece it together and then measure out the blank spots, and that's where I cut additional fabric. And if I'm feeling a little stuck, I'll also then start at the bottom and then work my way up. And I'm gonna for sure need to have to cut more and also cut very specific pieces, but this is just a starting place to kind of really get that pattern not be a pattern and to be very random. Okay, I have all my pieces cut and laid out, and it's okay if things are a little bit too big in places or even a little bit too small. That's the really nice thing about Pojagi is I can, if I realize one of my strips is 2 inches too small or whatever, I could go ahead and cut another piece off of my scrap fabric and add it onto here. I'm gonna go ahead and show a demonstration of what this sewing technique is, because it's not just like normal quilting. It's special because it is reversible. So the hems are fixed on both sides and there's not any raw fabric. When I was learning this technique, this was the hardest part for me to understand, was how the hem worked. Okay, so I'm gonna demonstrate the hem with some different colored paper so that you can see what's going on. So you're gonna take your two pieces of fabric, they're gonna be laid out next to each other like this, and you want a seam in between them. What you're gonna do is you're gonna fold one of them over. It really doesn't matter which one it is. I think it kind of depends if you're right-handed or left-handed and how you'd like to feed it through your machine, so just keep that in mind. If it doesn't feel natural to you going through the machine, try flipping it the other way. You wanna have a seam allowance of like 1 centimeter or so. And I'm gonna show this with staples just so you can understand what's going on. And we're gonna stitch about, you know, 1/2 centimeter or so. Okay, so I have my first stitch right here. I fed it through the machine this way. And now you're going to open up your hems. And this is where if you decide if you're struggling with your fabric, if you want to iron all the hems. I don't, because I don't like having my iron plugged in for hours on end, and I can make it work without it being ironed, but this is just optional if you need to iron it. I would say why not try without it, but if you want the iron on, you could also do that. So you're gonna flatten out your hem. And now what I think is comfortable for me, and me being right-handed in my machine, is I take the side with the flap, put that on my left-hand side, and now we're going to fold this over and under. Okay, so I folded it one way, and I'm gonna fold it again. Okay, and then we'll stitch, you know, a 1/2 centimeter or 1/4 inch on this hem right here. And I don't know if you could see what's going on. There we go. That's kind of what the stitch is gonna look like. And it's gonna have another stitch on it. I don't have the stitch because I can't staple this here, but I think that will help see what we're doing. And you just wanna do this over and over and over and over again until you have all of your patchwork put together. Okay, the other thing that can be kind of tricky about this is you can't just sew willy-nilly and just grab any pieces that are next to each other and sew them together, because you'll end up having rough edges that way. So there is a bit of a rhyme or reason on what pieces you pick up first, and you may even need to cut some of the pieces because of the way that it was set up. So you always need to grab 2 pieces that when they are sewn together, it will make a rectangle of some sort. It has to have 4 sides. So for example, for example, I can grab this piece, and I could hem right here, and you can see I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. Something that I cannot do is I cannot grab this big piece here and this yellow piece. I can't hem them together right here because I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. And then when this is all folded over nicely, I won't be able to get this piece in nice. And then this also won't get nice into here. So for a square that has more pieces like this, what you'd have to do is grab these pieces, hem them right here. So now these 2 are one piece together that has 4 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you could grab these 2 pieces and hem them along here. And now you have one bigger square. So it'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. So you have to keep on, you kind of have to bounce around all over the square, all over the panel, until you pretty much will only have like 2 or 3 big rectangles left. And if you run into a scenario where that's impossible for you, you'll usually have to cut a piece and then have to do an extra hem. That's totally fine. I've done that before, and it's just gonna happen. The other thing is, if you realize one of your pieces is too short, you can always add an inch or so. And also, if your sides are a little wonky, we're always gonna cut those. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start sewing this. I'm gonna do one slow, and then I'm gonna try to just get through this. Okay, so for example, I'm gonna put my 2 pieces together about 1 centimeter overlapped, like that. And I also realized you don't really need to backstitch because all these hems are gonna be closed up. But if you want to backstitch, go ahead. It's not gonna hurt anything. Okay, so there is my stitch. I'm gonna open it up. And just because this is the way I like to feed it through my machine, and I'm right-handed, the side with the overlap is on my left. I'm going to fold it and roll it so that you can see my stitch there. Yeah, if you wanted to iron this, this is where you would iron it at, but these are really thin fabrics and I don't have any issues. And here is my stitch. This is just something I found, is I like having my bobbin thread to be black and my top thread to be cream, I think it adds this really cool effect with the two colored threads. So this is one side, you can see there's no hem, and then the other side will only have one stitch like that. So you are just gonna do this 100 times. Okay, it's been a few days and I want to show you where I'm at. So these are actually two big panels that need to just be sewn together, but the panels are done. So I just have like this top third I need to sew, and then I'm gonna do some edges, which I don't think is always traditional. I think normally they just do a rolled hem. But I kind of like having a sturdier edge since these are curtains that are gonna be pulled in, and then do the top. Okay, so I'm gonna do the edge now, and I cut a 3.5-inch wide piece tooth. I cut two 3.5-inch wide pieces of my cream fabric, and I am just going to lay these across a long side of the curtain and cut about 2 inches longer so that I could have nice edges. Okay, I'm gonna cut about right here. This is going to be the time where I'm using an iron. My hair is crazy. Do the hems, to fold the hems in. That way I only have to do one stitch all the way down the side of the curtain, and I will be using pins also. I know I'm already speaking. This is not the proper way to do this. So I'm gonna fold down about 1 centimeter. Okay, then I'm gonna go at the bottom, fold up about 1 centimeter. Hot. Okay, so I have it all folded up on the same side. So now I'm going to sandwich them together and try to line up these edges as perfectly as I can, so that if I know they're ironed together perfectly, if I sew, you know, 1/4 inch in, I know I'll be getting both sides. Okay, and that is gonna be the edge for one of our curtains. And I leave the bottom of my curtain raw because I just kind of like the way it looks. But here I have all the edges pinned, and I'm just going to sew one stitch. Okay, so I hemmed my two long sides, and this is the part where you have to decide how you're hanging your curtains. And I'm not gonna show like specifically what I'm doing, but like if you just wanted to use these little clips, I would recommend just hemming the top the same way you hemmed the sides, and then you would just put your little clips on and run it through the rod. If you wanted to do loops over a rod, this is where I would recommend probably hemming the top and doing loops. I'm getting mine prepped for a track curtain, so I'm gonna put the track curtain top on, and then it's time to hang it up. So let me get that finished. Last step is to iron and take your thread de-threader, seam ripper, that's what it's called, your seam ripper, and cut all these loose threads, and it'll really clean it up and make it look really professional. Here is the curtain that I just made hung up. I have mine on track curtains, which I really like, but yeah, you could put them however you want. And I have, let me show you, 5, oh, it's so dark now. I have 5 panels of these in my guest bedroom. Let me open these back up so you can see. And if I were to buy Pojagi curtains, custom ones like this, or semi-custom where I kind of get to pick the color palette, on Etsy they tend to be about $300 to $600 a panel. And for all 5 of these panels, I only spent $100 on fabric. I think they're just the perfect curtain. So much fun. Look at it through here. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and maybe it inspired you to make some curtains of your own. It's definitely doable. It's a lot of work, The result is just so cool. I can't even explain how cool they look. Hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate it.